Thank you today, Frank, for joining us on another session of Frankly Speaking for November 2024. A lot has happened since we last spoke in October. So what is at the top of your mind today?
Well, a number of things. You're right, a lot's happened. First of all, just to set the stage here a little bit, we're moving these episodes around. Right now we're outside of water operations, we're in the atrium. So if you're watching the video of this and you see people walking by, they're actually doing work. The whole idea here was to create an opportunity to have a hallway conversation. So really excited about that. A few things just top of mind are the progress that we're making on a lot of the projects. I think about some of the major ones and some of the minor ones, but when you think about College Hill, great progress there. I think we're, if not done, almost done with the demolition. We're preparing neighbors for drilling and controlled blasting at the site. Obviously, it's a known, really common construction practice, but for the neighbors, it's not common. And so we are doing a significant amount of communications around that and outreach, and the project is going very well. I think the neighbors have appreciated the communications and the approach that we're taking. And so that's one that's progressing well. I was actually at one of the Coffee with Laura's meeting. Laura Farthing, the leader of the project, meets with customers on the first and third Thursday of the month. It really gives them a chance to connect with the project team and on site very directly. That's really a great opportunity for the project to interact with the community. The other one, we had a ribbon cutting just yesterday on the Currin Substation. It's really been a multi-year project. We had to do some reconfiguration of the transmission system to facilitate the project. It's a project that was originally built in 1962. Pacific Corp owned it. It was named after a Mr. Currin, who apparently was the designer. We could have named it after Philip Peterson, who was the project, but the Currin family contacted us and were concerned that we were going to change the name. So we left it as the Currin Substation, but Philip, the substation crews, the line crews, the construction crews have done a phenomenal job there. It looks beautiful, it's modern, the bus structure and configuration's great. And it's a really important substation. Transmission lines come into that substation from the east, from the west, and from the north and the south. And so some of those being Bonneville lines, some of them feeding out to Hayden Bridge, and then some of them feeding into the downtown core and the Oakway substation. So that project's, we're completing it. It goes hot, I think, next week. Really excited about that one. The third one, so we got one water, one electric. The third one is the EWEB Enterprise Solutions, EES project, which is been a massive effort, and one of the things I wanted to do was really thank the people involved in that project. There's been roughly 70 to 80 people involved in that project for months now. And the workload, the effort, the professionalism, the attention to detail, the leadership of that project, the guidance, the change management has been really what we hope sets the example for organization-wide projects, in this case an information system upgrade to our customer system and our financial system, and how we present bills to the customers, so our customer portal, which is very important. And we're entering, I think they're in what they call dress rehearsal mode. They're really getting ready for the cutover. These people have committed to work through the Thanksgiving holiday as part of the cutover, so the plan is to go live on December 2nd. Which is, again, a credit to their efforts and is part of this dress rehearsal. I think there were people here the other night who started work at midnight. It's an actual rehearsal of the go live process, and so really excited about that project. Really proud of the work that's gone into it, and looking forward to getting that launched, but also the amount of hypercare that's going to go into it for a number of months, and continuous improvement that we're going to to work on. It's not just, hey, we launch it and we forget it. This is something where we have to continue to nurture it. So 3 really important projects, and very excited about all of them.
Yeah, and then also in October, we had our inaugural truck or treat event. Yes, about 10 trucks that were decorated, and 1,200 folks from the community came out, and kids got lots of candy, which I'm sure they appreciated. Well, who knows if their parents did or not, but
their dentists certainly probably did, yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, well, let's talk a little bit about the board meeting that happened earlier this week. There were a couple pretty technical topics in there. Maybe we can dive into one of them, the system development charges. So this is an interesting discussion about who pays for when EWEB needs to expand the capacity of the system and go to a new area. So just tell us a little bit about that discussion and what are some of the questions there?
Yeah, well, the history of system development charges, or SDCs, goes back to a time when the legislature realized that especially small utilities who needed to add capacity needed to have a way to fund that capacity. And so it created a mechanism through the state process that allowed utilities to charge developers some percentage of the capacity that was needed in the system to serve that consumption. EWEB is not necessarily required to have SDCs, but it is something where we look at it as a fairness issue. And to your point about who pays, if system capacity has value, and we think it does, then there is some split between the direct beneficiary, the developer, the tenants of a particular construction project, and then there's some value also to our general ratepayers as well. And the board is wrestling with recommendations that we have around what that split looks like, who benefits, who pays, how is that socialized across our rate base. It's not something, where we left this was to develop some kind of standard process and policy. It's not something that we review the methodology very often, either every 5 years or every 10 years. And so capturing why we're doing it, the philosophy, the approach is the process that we're in now. And we will align that over the long term with our water master plan, because a lot of this is built into our, aligned with our capital planning. So
is there a term date or time when the policy might or might not change? What's the next step there?
Yeah, we're gonna, over the first quarter of 2025, work on refining the policy. We'll take that to the board in March and likely make adjustments to the actual SDCs middle of next year as we come out with the master plan.
Yeah. Well, on the same topic of money, a bit unrelated, but the city of Eugene is looking to raise some more funds to fund various services, and they're looking for help from EWEB by trying to institute a fire fee that would appear on the EWEB bill. So we heard a bit about this at the board meeting last night, but where does that stand, and where are commissioners coming down on that?
Yeah, so there's EWEB does do some billing for the city of Eugene. We're required by code to build for what's called fluid services. That's a fancy way of saying stormwater and wastewater. And so while those are not direct EWEB charges, we are required to bill for the city for those services. A fire fee would be an additional fee that they're looking to use to potentially fill some gaps in their general fund budget. It's not something we're required to do. It is something that will get a high degree of exposure. Again, it's something that would be added to an EWEB bill that's not necessarily an EWEB charge. And so the commissioners have a number of concerns about it. One is we have such critical services, electric, water, they don't feel like it's appropriate for us to be disconnecting people who can't afford to pay because the city has piled on another charge. On the other hand, I think the commissioners are also realizing that if the city does do this charge, it could be a very efficient method for EWEB to do the billing, and overall it would save cost for our community. And so there's some mixed things to navigate through there. I think that if the city refines this further, they have another approval process to go through. If they do decide to approve this fee, EWEB would be an option for that, and there's just a lot of details that we'll have to work out around logistics of what that could or could not look like. Eventually, because of its exposure to our customers, is something that I would really lean into the board, in this case, to approve or not approve. I don't feel like it would be fully within my authority to make that kind of a decision.
Yeah, and I think this discussion actually brings up an interesting point about the distinction between EWEB and the city. A lot of other customer-owned utilities are just departments within their city, and the city council has really direct authority. And then there's other utilities that are pretty distant from their city, and we seem to be in kind of a middle ground.
Yeah, we're actually in a very fortunate middle ground within municipal utilities. If I wave to somebody, it's because they're walking by. There are a number of different models for governance within municipal utilities. Like you said, some of them actually report to the city manager. Some of them have to have certain things. Tacoma is an example where they actually have their own board, but for certain things like rates, they have to get their own board's approval plus the city council approval. Imagine how much fun that would be. We're very fortunate that in the city charter going way back, it established an independent board. So we are chartered under the city. However, we are governed separate from the city. We have our own board, which is great. They can really focus on energy issues and not blend a lot of the issues with the other things that a city would be concerned with.
Yeah. Well, last time on Frankly Speaking, we talked a lot about the budget. So maybe we can just get a brief update. Where are we standing here in November, and what's the next step on the budget?
Yeah, in November we took this budget that we have been sort of crafting for a while. It's a little under $500 million for 2025. It's just under 490. It's a significant amount of money. I did run into one of the electric crew members a couple of days ago, and they said, "Wow, this is quite a process for budgeting." And if you're asking for a few $100,000, maybe it's simpler. When you're asking for almost $500 million, I think you have to go through a reasonable process to ensure that you're spending it well and you're being a good steward of our customers' money. In November, we took the next step, was to say, here's this budget, but here's now how it transfers into customer rates. And so for the first time for 2025, we actually presented the customer classes and what the rate impacts will be for those classes on both the water utility and electric utility side. So that we had a public hearing, and then we'll do the same thing in December and look for the board's approval at that point for both the budget and the rates.
Yeah. And then one of the final things that happened at the board meeting this month was a discussion of the mission and vision for EWEB, just kind of the goals for 2025. Board members offered a fair number of different perspectives. What was your take on that, though, where they were urging us to go in 2025?
Yeah, it's always good to test where you have alignment in those chartered with governing an organization. We have a strategic plan that was developed a number of years ago. We feel really good about that plan and where it's taking us and how we're getting there and how it's helping with some of the priorities. But it's always good to test and see what's top of mind for, in this case, our commissioners. And we did that by asking just some very basic questions. What is our role in the community, for example? And some of them view those as different things. One of the common themes was they really care about the resources that we use to deliver our commodities. So, for example, drinking water and source protection, it's a very important asset that we continue to be good stewards of. On the electric side, where are we generating electricity? What's the carbon content, environmental impacts? How do we ensure that we have enough capacity going forward? So there's a lot of discussion around the resource side. A few comments specific to programs here and there. There are also, I noticed, kind of a thread with making sure that we understand our community's priorities. In this case, it can be the city's priorities. We didn't fully explore all of the other options around, what's our role in economic development, what's our role in housing and some of those things. Our primary mission is the delivery of electricity and water. I think it did not vary from that, which is good. I didn't hear a lot of piling on of new things. It was more, hey, we're comfortable with where we need to focus, and that's the delivery of our essential services. And so how we do that and how we ensure that we can continue to do that safely, affordably, reliably, environmentally, all those things, that the land of and, I think as we've talked about, all those things are part of our mission, and I didn't hear a lot of things that would warrant sort of redirection.
Yeah. So we have a good sense of the what. Now the real challenge comes and how. How do we execute?
Yeah, it's how we do it. I mean, I think especially, and we're going to probably see this some in 2025. Just the political environment that we're operating in. We're going to have a change in the White House, of which I think for the first time we'll also have alignment between parties in the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives federally, which will likely change some of our regulatory environment. We also know that when that tends to happen, you can get the opposite impact at the state and local level, so almost kind of a compensation for what they see as potentially happening at the federal level. So we're going to have to figure out how to navigate that. That's part of the how, and it's just part of the operating environment that we're working in. I'm just really pleased that we went through this election process. I think the people of EWEB continued to work. They stayed focused. They were respectful in that process. We didn't actually see a lot of issues across the community as well. So I'm really pleased with that particular part of our response.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap up here. Every time we do this talk and discussion, we want to offer kudos to an individual or a team at EWEB that's done great work in the previous months. So which individual or team comes to mind for you for this home?
Well, I think I did mention it earlier. I think the EES team is one that has just, like I said, this has not been something that they've been working hard on for a month or a few months. This has been somewhere around a year and a half to 2 years preparing for this, making sure that when we go live with two really important things, a financial system and a customer system, that it's ready. There's lots of things as far as data integrity, lots of testing, mocking up data, making sure that the accuracies of the bills, which everybody pays attention to, is correct. Just that team recognizing that it's not just a technical challenge to do that, but it's a human challenge, change management, understanding that we're going to have to do things in different ways. The amount of training. I was just upstairs yesterday actually, and saw, I think it was called lesson 2, which was automatic customer move-in. So they can check me on that. I'm paying attention to those details. But yeah, the EES team and the people who are backfilling for those who are on the EES project. Just it's created really an organizational wave that had to be invested in, had to be resourced, and people have really done a great job with that. So that's really my biggest thank you, and looking forward to next time we talk, hopefully having a successful go live. I know there's lots of go, no-go processes in there, and so I don't want to jump the gun there, but really looking forward to that being a successful project.
Yeah, well, thank you, Frank, for joining us today on Frankly Speaking, and we'll see you in a month.
Appreciate it. See you next month, and we'll come to you from a different location. We'll have to figure out where that is. Thanks, everybody. Have a good month.